Hey, you guys! I'm back for part 2 of my video about awesome movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s that became awful TV shows. To begin, let's address some of the comments I saw from part 1. Yes, The Odd Couple was a movie turned TV show before MASH, and it was very successful. But while The Odd Couple, which was originally a stage play, was perfectly suited for a sitcom and its transition to TV made sense, MASH was a huge surprise for TV executives and opened up a whole new world to them. If they could take a war drama and successfully turn it into a long-running TV comedy, then no movie was off the table when it came to TV adaptations, which is why we got shows like Delta House and Gung Ho. Second, I will not be mentioning mediocre movies that became mediocre TV shows like Harry and the Hendersons or Baby Boom. There were too many other titles that deserved attention in this video about awesome to awful, so I avoided the mediocrity. And finally, yes, there were definitely movies turned TV shows that didn't fit the awesome to awful narrative, and maybe I shouldn't have included Starman in part 1, but I love the movie so much that the TV show disappointed me and it was gone in one season, so that's why it made my list. As for the other shows that didn't fit the awesome to awful narrative, I made a bonus video about 3 of them because I still wanted to talk about these shows and what made them different, so I made a whole video about them for my channel members. This video gives my argument for why Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Alien Nation were 2 movies that were turned into pretty great TV shows, and it also shares the crazy story behind Blazing Saddles and Black Bart. So if you're interested in seeing that video, click the join button on my channel and select I've got a 5 on it to see the special members only video, plus getting all of the other member perks. Okay, now that all of that is out of the way, let's take a quick look at the awesome movies turned awful TV shows that I mentioned in part 1, and then we will make our way into part 2. Welcome to my so-called Gen X life. My name is Natalie, and this is part 2 of my video about awesome 70s, 80s, and 90s movies that were turned into awful TV shows. Breaking Away was a short-lived TV show that took one of the most beloved sports films of the late 70s and turned it into something not quite Oscar-worthy. The original Breaking Away movie was a cinematic delight. It followed 4 working-class teens, Dave, Mike, Cyril, and Moocher, as they navigated life in a college town where they're mocked as cutters by snooty university students. It had everything: small-town charm, a love for cycling, and even an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay. Critics loved it. Audiences loved it. The film became a classic. And then came the TV series. In 1980, someone at ABC decided this wholesome coming-of-age story needed a weekly spin-off. Enter Breaking Away, a TV show that served as a prequel to the film, because apparently what we all wanted was less resolution to our favorite characters' arcs. Sean Cassidy replaced Dennis Christopher as Dave Stoller, the cycling-obsessed protagonist, with a love for all things Italian. He gave it his all, but let's face it, following Dennis Christopher's pitch-perfect performance was like trying to win the Tour de France on a tricycle. And while the film had emotional depth, the TV show's plotlines felt like they'd been lifted from rejected after-school specials. Dave's cycling dreams? Check. College town hijinks? Double check. A character named Paulina Bornstein, played by Poltergeist star Dominique Dunne, who had a tragic life story that I will talk about in a future video? Oh, you got that too. Here's the thing. Thanks to a 1980 Screen Actors Guild strike, the show's production was delayed. And when it finally aired, it had the misfortune of competing with, well, literally anything else on TV. Ratings immediately tanked, and ABC axed it after just 7 aired episodes. 7 episodes out of the 8 that were produced. It didn't even get a chance to limp to the finish line. The network tried reruns in 1981, and later on A&E gave it a pity airing in the mid-80s, but the show never found its audience. Why? Because it lacked what made the movie work: heart. The series swapped out heartfelt exploration of working-class identity for sitcom-y fluff. And that is why Breaking Away makes my list of awesome movies turned into awful TV shows. back in 1987, Eddie Murphy was on fire. I mean, this man had the kind of Midas touch where even his piece of shit movies turned into gold at the box office. Yes, that's an actual Eddie quote about The Golden Child, a movie that grossed over $100 million because Eddie Murphy. Now, Paramount Pictures loved Eddie so much, they basically said, whatever you want, Eddie. You want your own movie production company? Done. TV production? Sure. And that's how Eddie Murphy Television was born. Fast forward to 1988, Eddie drops Coming to America, and boom, box office smash, cultural phenomenon, and My Name is Peaches becomes part of the American lexicon. Naturally, they thought, let's bring this magic to TV. The pitch? A weekly sitcom following Akeem's little brother, Prince Tariq, vanished to New York City to go to college. That's right, Akeem sends his unruly brother to Queens College to live on a budget, because apparently that's the move when you're a royal in Zamunda. Well, it got the green light, and who did they cast as Prince Tariq? None other than Tommy Davidson, an electric new comedian who, in his own words, was, quote, the most sought-after black comedian in Hollywood. Bold statement, but he's not really wrong. The man had serious chops, and he was very sought after at the time. They even brought back Paul Bates as Oha, who's now renamed Omar for reasons, and the showrunner, his name is Ken Hite, a white guy known for Different Strokes and Webster, because of course in the late 80s, that's who networks thought could nail the black experience. So let's break down the pilot. Tariq lands in New York, blows his allowance in 9 days, and ends up working at a diner owned by their landlord, Carl Mackey. Hijinks ensue, kind of. The script, well, let's just say it was uninspired. Tariq's big moment involves waving around the art of the deal and declaring, I'm just like this Donald Trump guy. Ken Hite reportedly ruled that set like a sitcom dictator, and Tommy, he wasn't having it. The man tried improvising, adding his own flavor, but Ken wasn't about that life. This led to more tension than a Real Housewives reunion. And Eddie Murphy? Well, he was nowhere to be found because he was busy being Eddie Murphy. CBS did not pick up this series, but ended up airing the pilot on July 4th, 1989 during their Let's Burn Off the Dead Weight Summer Playhouse series. Airing a show on Independence Day is basically the network equivalent of whispering, yeah, we don't care either. And that's how Coming to America, the sitcom, went from potential gold to a cautionary tale. A perfect storm of a mismatched creative team, bad timing, and Eddie Murphy's hands-off approach sank this ship before it even left the dock. The real tragedy? Had this show gotten the right team, it could have paved the way for In Living Color or The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Instead, it's just another entry in my awesome movies turned awful TV shows YouTube video. Down and Out in Beverly Hills is a 1986 comedy gem that brought us Nick Nolte as a suicidal homeless man, Bette Midler as a neurotic housewife, and Richard Dreyfuss as a guy so rich he's cheating on his wife with the maid, who his wife hired just to keep him busy. Add in Little Richard singing at a poolside party, and you've got a movie that's quirky, heartfelt, and very 1980s. It's also the first Disney film to get an R rating, which is like Mickey Mouse flipping the bird at censorship, but then came the 1987 TV show, cue the sad trombone. Someone decided to take that mix of satire and social commentary and turn it into a sitcom with all the subtlety of a sledgehammer. Down and Out in Beverly Hills, the series, aired on the brand new Fox network, making it one of their very first attempts to launch original programming. It was also their first show to get canceled, 5 episodes in, and Fox was like, yeah, we're good. Hector Elizondo stepped into Richard Dreyfuss's Loafers as Dave Whiteman, while Anita Morris played Barbara, originally portrayed by Midler, and Nick Nolte's scruffy Jerry Baskin was replaced by Tim Thomerson, who brought all the charisma of a guy who'd rather be anywhere else. Even the family dog Matisse looked like he was over it. The only actor to reprise their role from the movie was Evan Richards as Max, the Whiteman's video-obsessed, gender-questioning son. He probably regrets answering the phone that day. But I digress. The premise? A working-class guy named Dave strikes it rich, moves from his family to Beverly Hills, and, get this, takes life advice from a homeless philosopher named Jerry. It's a sitcom, so every episode involved wacky misunderstandings, social climbing hijinks, and the occasional attempt at heartfelt moments. Kind of like Three's Company with less charm and way more rich people problems. Let's not forget that this show was unleashed during a very specific era of television, the late 1980s, where rich people are so weird was a genre unto itself. But where the movie found depth and satire in its critique of wealth and privilege, the TV series turned it into a shallow parade of cliches. It was like someone looked at the movie and said, you know what's missing? A laugh track. Hmm. The series also suffered from a massive identity crisis. Was it trying to be a comedy, a social commentary, a soap opera? Who knows? What we do know is that it couldn't figure out its tone fast enough to hold on to viewers. When Fox aired its sixth ever original episode of anything, they made the executive decision to pull the plug. It's like being benched during a game where you're the only player. So, why did Down and Out Beverly Hills, the series, fail? For one, the charm of the original cast was irreplaceable. Hector Elizondo is a fine actor, but he's no Richard Dreyfuss, and Tim Thomerson as Jerry had none of Nick Nolte's grizzled gravitas. The show also diluted the movie's sharp satire into generic sitcom fluff. The biting commentary on class and privilege, gone. The quirky layered characters, replaced with caricatures. Even the Beverly Hills setting felt like a cardboard cutout version of itself. In the end, Down and Out in Beverly Hills, this series, was a textbook example of how not to adapt a beloved film for television. It's like they took a five-star meal and turned it into a microwavable TV dinner. Sure, it's technically the same ingredients, but it's missing the flavor, the presentation, and frankly, the point. Still, credit where it's due, Down and Out in Beverly Hills earned its place in history as Fox's first ever canceled show. That's an achievement, right? One of the boldest, most misguided attempts to cash in on a movie classic has to be the Dirty Dancing TV series, an 11-episode train wreck that CBS unleashed on the world from October of 1988 to January of 1989. If you thought turning Baby and Johnny's iconic summer romance into a weekly sitcom was a bad idea, congratulations. You're more qualified than the people who greenlit this disaster. So the series decided to take the original movie's charm, chemistry, and nostalgia and throw it into the spin cycle. This time, Baby's not just a resort guest. No, she's Frances Baby Kellerman, daughter of Kellerman's owner Max. Yeah, they retconned her last name to match the resort. That makes sense, right? Anyways, Baby's summer job is managing Johnny Castle, who's now the talent director at the camp. They're still squabbling about dance routines and still not getting along until feelings. Oh, but not too many feelings. This is a series, so they've got to stretch out that romantic tension out over 22 minutes a week. Now let's talk about the cast. Here's where it gets good, and by good, I mean hilariously bad. Patrick Cassidy steps in as Johnny Castle because apparently Hollywood had no other Patricks available. Melora Hardin takes on Baby, a character Jennifer Grey made iconic. And let's just say this version of Baby was less innocent but determined and more just kind of there. Oh, there's Paul Feig is in this. I'm not sure why. He plays Norman Bryant because, of course, why not? Anyways, the dancing, not great. The chemistry, non-existent. The nostalgia factor, about as authentic as a polyester prom dress. The show had one job, to recreate the magic of Dirty Dancing. Instead, it decided to add overcomplicated plots, social commentary, and extra characters who just wandered around Kellerman's like they were in a low-budget soap opera. Critics roasted the show for trying too hard while delivering too little. The dancing, a core element of the original, was described as clunky and awkward, which is a problem when your show is literally called Dirty Dancing. After just 11 episodes, CBS pulled the plug, leaving Baby and Johnny to dance off into the TV oblivion. In the end, the Dirty Dancing series is a definite proof that some things are better left on the big screen. Nobody puts Baby in a corner, but CBS sure tried putting her in prime time, and they failed spectacularly.
Sometimes you know what you're looking for.
Okay, so let's talk about another classic, Adventures in Babysitting. The 1987 movie that gave us Elizabeth Shue running through Chicago with 3 kids in tow while dodging mobsters, tow trucks, and Vincent D'Onofrio's Thor. Yeah, Thor. It was the kind of chaotic fun that made you rethink ever asking your babysitter for anything ever again. Pure 80s gold. But what happens when Hollywood decides to take that magic, bottle it up, and pour it all over a TV pilot? Well, you get the Unsold Adventures in Babysitting TV show, a project so bad it didn't even make it to a season order. Let's break it down. First off, there's the casting. Stepping into the role of Chris was Jennifer Guthrie. Joey Lawrence, of course, played Brad Anderson, and Brian Austin Green was Daryl Coopersmith. Now here's the premise. After their big city escapades in the movie, babysitter extraordinaire Chris is somehow conned into watching Brad, Sarah, and Daryl again. Because apparently surviving the first adventure wasn't enough trauma for one lifetime. This time, what starts as a simple trip to the store, classic babysitting excuse by the way, turns into a full-blown hostage situation. Yeah, you heard it right. Hostages. Because nothing says wholesome family fun like staring down the barrel of a gun in a suburban supermarket. Now let's address the obvious. Why on earth would Chris agree to babysit these kids again? Did she lose a bet? Did she owe someone money? Or, I'm just spitballing here, did the writers forget she should have been in therapy after the first movie? Either way, Chris is back, and once again, she's dragging these kids through another ridiculous, borderline traumatic adventure. When it comes to bad TV adaptations, it seems that the formula is simple. Take everything you loved about the original, strip away the charm, and double down on the absurdity. But here's the thing: wasn't just any bad TV pilot. This was a pilot so lackluster, so utterly devoid of the movie's spirit, that the network took one look at it and said, "No." No one knows for sure what went wrong, but judging by the premise alone, it's not hard to imagine. For starters, you're taking a single movie's worth of chaos and stretching it into an episodic format. What happens next week? Chris loses the kids at a Chuck E. Cheese? Chris accidentally joins a biker gang? How many increasingly ridiculous scenarios can you put a babysitter in before it becomes a full-blown parody of itself? And let's not forget the most important question of all. Who even asked for this? The original Adventures in Babysitting worked because it was a lightning in a bottle mix of humor, danger, and heart. Elizabeth Shue's Chris was the glue holding it all together, balancing teenage awkwardness with kick-ass resourcefulness and awesome blues singing. Without her and without the 80s charm, this TV pilot was doomed from the start. So why even try? Well, Hollywood has a habit of looking at a beloved movie and thinking, you know what this needs? A watered down version with a laugh track. Okay, I'm sorry. I know I've used that joke before. I'll stop. But that's how we ended up with Adventures in Babysitting, the pilot that nobody wanted. In the end, the Adventures in Babysitting TV show wasn't just an unsold pilot. It was a reminder that not every movie needs to be a franchise. Not every story needs to be milked dry, and not every babysitting gig needs to turn into a full-blown hostage crisis. Let's dust off the time-traveling phone booth to revisit one of the most heinously forgotten chapters in television history, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures. No, not the totally awesome movies with Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter. I'm talking about the live-action TV show. Yes, it existed. Yes, it aired. And yes, it was that bad. So here's the setup. You take the magic of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, the heavy metal dudes who travel through time to meet historical figures and teach us all how to be excellent to each other, and then you throw it out the window and replace it with this. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures aired for a whopping 7 episodes in 1992 on Fox. Starring Evan Richards as Christopher Kennedy as Bargain Bill and Ted, the show was what you'd get if Temu sold TV series. Look at these guys. Off-brand action figures sold under the name time-traveling dudes. Now, I'll give the show credit. It had some decent special effects, but as a critic for Variety put it, and I quote, taking two-dimensional teen time travelers and making a movie was a good idea. Taking one-dimensional teen time travelers and making a weekly series is not. Yikes. Oh, besides Evan Richards as Bill and Christopher Kennedy as Ted, there was Rick Overton as Rufus, because of course we were not going to get George Carlin. He played the time-traveling babysitter because every show needs a grown-up to go, seriously, dudes? Now you might be wondering, where are Keanu Reeves and Alex Winter during all of this? Well, fun fact, they were never even asked to be in this series. Instead, Fox pitched the show as a comedy in the style of Porky's. When Alex Winter was asked about the show on the Arsenio Hall show, he said, and I quote, "It stinks, ladies and gentlemen. They really missed the boat." Oh, the boat? No. They missed the whole ocean. Okay, let's talk about the episodes. One of the highlights, and I use that term loosely, is It's a Totally Wonderful Life, where Rufus screws up history and turns Bill and Ted into lifelong enemies. How? Because of an engraved award that says Chicken Kiev. Yeah, you heard me right, Chicken Kiev. And they still called this the best episode. That's like saying this dog food tastes better than the expired cat food I tried yesterday. But here's where it gets even weirder. The show was developed by none other than Darren Star, the guy who brought us 90210 and Sex and the City. Imagine going from designing Carrie Bradshaw's love life to writing jokes about Chicken Kiev. That's what we call a career pivot, folks. Actually, it was the other way around, but you get what I'm saying. Hey, maybe you're one of the few people who actually remembers this show, or maybe you're just like the rest of us trying to suppress the memory. Either way, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures was a righteous failure.
From the dawn of history, there were nerds on the family tree.
The Revenge of the Nerds TV pilot from 1991 was supposed to bring the beloved 1984 cult classic, a film about underdog nerds sticking it to the jocks, into the living rooms of America. Instead, it ended up unaired and banished to the DVD extra section of history. The movie Revenge of the Nerds had hilarious hijinks, nerdy ingenuity, and a satisfying punch-up of the alpha betas. The TV pilot, on the other hand, had an animated opening sequence featuring famous nerds throughout history. Yeah, they took us from Noah to Albert Einstein to Da Vinci, all to remind us that nerds have been making history long before pocket protectors were a thing. Great idea, poor execution. The premise was straightforward. Lewis, Gilbert, Booger, and Wormser, played by a cast that screams syndicated sitcom energy, are kicked out of their dorm by the Alpha Betas. So what do? They join the Lambda fraternity, naturally, and plot their revenge against the jocks. It's all the college misfit tropes you'd expect, but without any of the movie's charm or wit. And here's the kicker. Most of the beloved characters from the movie, Poindexter, Lamar, Takashi, don't even make an appearance. They decided to trim the nerd roster for reasons. Instead, we get a new character, P.T. Turner, who is basically a less charismatic version of Ewan Jefferson from the films. Sorry, Richard Gant, but even your best efforts couldn't save this one. And what about the romantic subplots? Well, in the movie, Betty eventually falls for Lewis and Gilbert finds love with Judy, but in the pilot for TV, Betty still wants nothing to do with Lewis, and Judy? Never even heard of her. As if the writers said, romance, nah, we're gonna lean into awkward rejection instead. Bold choice, guys. Now let's talk casting. Rob Stone and Mr. Belvedere fame took on the role of Louis Skolnick, and while he tried his best, his portrayal lacked the endearing awkwardness that made Robert Carradine's Louis so lovable. Light-filled Lewis as Gilbert was fine, and then there's Robbie Rist, aka Cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch, playing Booger, and he does his thing in the pilot, I guess, but it's clear that the magic of the original cast was harder to recreate than anyone anticipated. And let's not forget Julie McCullough of Growing Pains fame, or infamy. She plays Betty, though her role in the pilot was reduced to pretty girl who ignores Lewis. Poor Betty deserved better. If you're wondering about continuity, the pilot is set in 1984, just like the original movie, even though it's 1991. But here's the thing, it feels like the writers were determined to remind you this wasn't the movie. Sure, they reused some footage from the film, because why not, but the humor and the heart, completely MIA. And then there's the tagline. They've been laughed at, picked on, and put down, but now it's time for the odd to get even. Their time has come. Which sounds great, I guess, until you realize the pilot never really delivers on the promise. Instead, it feels like an extended commercial for why the original movie was so much better. In the end, the pilot for Revenge of the Nerds was so underwhelming that the network wisely decided to leave it unaired. It now lives on as a curiosity tucked away in the panty-rated edition DVD and Blu-ray release of the movie. Watching it is like finding an embarrassing high school yearbook photo, equal parts nostalgic and mortifying. And if you'd like to see it, there's a link in the description to the video here on YouTube. Gen Xers across America had The Outsiders, a 1967 novel from S.E. Hinton, on their required reading list at some point during middle school. And we also had the joy of watching the amazing 1983 movie from Francis Ford Coppola, based on the book that had the most insane cast you can imagine. I'm talking Patrick Swayze, Rob Lowe, Tom Cruise, C. Thomas Howell, Emilio Estevez, Ralph Macchio, Matt Dillon, and Diane Lane. They played characters who were all part of a group of troubled teens in 1960s Oklahoma, and they had names like Soda Pop and Ponyboy. The cast was so good. There's actually a list of big names from the 80s who auditioned but didn't get a role. People like Timothy Hutton, Sean Penn, Mickey Rourke, Anthony Michael Hall, Scott Baio, and Dennis Quaid. The Outsiders cast brought the book to life on the big screen in a way that resonated with so many of us. To this day, I will still say, stay gold, Ponyboy, when a moment demands it. So, of course, this movie had to be turned into a TV show, and that's exactly what happened in 1990 when the Fox network ordered 13 episodes, with Coppola as the series executive producer and Hinton as a script advisor. The show began with a 90-minute pilot, with a short scene from the original film that featured Dallas Winston, played by Matt Dillon, the Matt Dillon character, running from the police and getting shot. And the goal of this series was for it to be a sequel to the movie so they could build on each character from the film. It told the story of the Curtis brothers, 14-year-old Ponyboy, 16-year-old Soda Pop, and 20-year-old Derry, who are on their own after their parents are killed in a car accident. The three brothers struggle to stay together as they spend time with their greaser friends and come into conflict with the rich kids known as the Socias. Their series ditched the movie cast, though, and instead auditioned 2,500 actors before settling on a group of relative unknowns, with a few who would later become recognizable. The Outsiders series starred J.R. Ferguson as Ponyboy, David Arquette as Two-Bit, and Billy Bob Thornton as Buck. Even Leonardo DiCaprio showed up as a boy fighting scout, played by Heather McComb, in one of the episodes. The pilot aired as a special preview on March 25th, 1990, 7 years after the release of the film, and it was Fox's highest rated drama in the network show's history, drawing a 9.316 national Nielsen rating, which equated to about 14 million viewers. The problem was that The Outsiders had lost half of the viewers from its Married with Children lead-in. Then, when the show hit its regular Saturday night 7 o'clock time slot as a mid-season replacement, the ratings fell fast. By episode 4, the show ranked dead last in the ratings and remained in the bottom 5 for the rest of its short run. All 13 episodes of The Outsiders were finished months before the series debuted, forcing the cast to wait and hope that Fox would renew the series for the 90-91 season. But by May of 90, it was clear that the show wasn't going to make it. That's when the network announced its new schedule, and The Outsiders was one of 5 shows being canceled. And at the time, only 8 episodes had aired. Fox broadcast another 3 episodes during June. The last 2 aired in July, with the 13th and final episode broadcast on July 22nd of 1990. The series finale, entitled Union Blues, reached an optimistic conclusion to the story of the group's troubled youth, but there was definitely some cliffhangers that were never resolved.
Silver Cities Rise.
Working Girl was a 1988 movie that gave us Melanie Griffith's career-defining role as Tess McGill. We also got Sigourney Weaver as her high-powered nightmare of a boss, and Harrison Ford as the ultimate 1980s executive eye candy. This feminist underdog story was a hit, and Carly Simon's anthem Let the River Run became an earworm that could make even a cynical Wall Street shark tear up. But when Hollywood decided to turn this gem into a 1990 NBC sitcom, well, it's safe to say the river ran dry. Enter Sandra Bullock, pre-Speed and pre-Miss Congeniality. She took over the role of Tess McGill, which was played by Griffith, in what should have been a star-making TV debut. But instead of a career launch pad, it turned into the equivalent of a bad office memo. Forgettable, confusing, and doomed to the trash bin. Bullock actually replaced Facts of Life star Nancy McKeon, who had initially been cast for this series, but the show aired for just a whopping 8 episodes before NBC handed Tess her pink slip. Ouch. Also in the cast was George Newbern, who played Everett. You might know him as Brian McKenzie from the Father of the Bride movies with Steve Martin, Diane Keaton, and Kimberly Williams Paisley. There was also Anthony Tyler Quinn, who played Sal, who you should definitely know as Mr. Turner from Boy Meets World. So, what went wrong with this TV show? Well, it completely ran away from the premise of the original movie and turned into a cheesy sitcom. Tess, the plucky Staten Island secretary, charms her way into a junior executive position by impressing the big boss, A.J. Trask. Her first challenge? Surviving her office nemesis, Mrs. Bryn Newhouse, the company witch, who makes Sigourney Weaver's character from the movie look like a life coach. Each night, Tess would return home to her doting parents, Joe and Fran, who served up classic sitcom parental wisdom. Meanwhile, Sal's relentless pursuit made it clear that even when you're climbing the corporate ladder, Staten Island doesn't let you forget your roots. The show's theme song? Well, it did get Carly Simon's Let the River Run as a nostalgic nod to the movie, but it probably made viewers wish they were watching Melanie Griffith hustle her way to the top instead of this watered-down sitcom version. As a mid-season replacement, Working Girl faced an uphill battle from the start. It debuted in April 1990 and barely limped into the summer before getting axed. Low ratings sealed its fate, with NBC airing just 8 of the 12 episodes produced. The remaining 4 episodes were likely tossed into the same abyss where canceled TV dreams go to die. But the show did have a brief afterlife. There was a quick rerun stint on PB Land in the 90s when Sandra Bullock had become a bona fide movie star. Imagine stumbling upon it late at night in like 1996 1997 thinking, wait, is that Sandra Bullock? And why is she wearing such large shoulder pads? Ultimately, Working Girl, the sitcom, flopped because it's hard to bottle the magic of the original movie, the witty dialogue, the feminist themes, the chemistry between Griffith, Ford, and Weaver, and stuff it into a 22-minute sitcom format. The show flattened its characters into stereotypes, drained the charm from the story, and turned Tessa's empowering journey into a series of lightweight office gags. It was less, you go girl, and more, why are you still here, girl? In the end, the Working Girl sitcom proved that sometimes it's best to let the river run straight to the end credits of the movie and no more. Science is a beautiful thing, but sometimes science goes a little too far. I'm talking about Weird Science, the 1985 John Hughes movie about two nerds who hacked the laws of physics to create the perfect woman. Yep, it was a movie. It was weird, it was sciencey, and it had Kelly LeBrock in a crop top. It was peak 80s American exceptionalism. Then, then they made a TV show out of it, a full decade later, because of course they did. Weird Science, the TV show, ran on the USA Network from 1994 to 1997. And if you're thinking, wow, that's a long run for a show I've never heard of, don't worry, even the network seemed to forget about it. The final 6 episodes were so beloved that they only aired during reruns of the Sci Fi Channel in 1998. So, what's the deal with the plot? Well, two high school nerds, Gary Wallace and Wyatt Donnelly, this time played by John Mallory Asher and Michael Manasseri, use a computer to create Lisa, their dream woman. A freak lightning storm brings her to life, and boom, now we've got a magic genie in a mid 90s power suit who can grant wishes and solve problems, sort of. Lisa, played by Vanessa Angel, is a genius with undefined magical powers that seem to exist only to fix the boys' problems, or occasionally create new ones for the sake of the plot. She's like if Alexa went rogue and decided to play matchmaker instead of ordering your groceries. The show's creators could not rope in the original cast because it was a decade later. Kelly LeBrock? No. Anthony Michael Hall? Forget it. Bill Paxton? Not happening. Instead, for that role, we got Lee Tergesen. Yeah, Tobias Beecher from Oz, playing Wyatt's brother Chet, a wannabe military tough guy who's just as useless as a series premise. Chet is less tough love and more annoying frat bro who never graduated. And let's not forget the quirky but forgettable supporting characters, like Wyatt's absent parents, who were apparently too busy to notice a magical woman living in their house. Now, you'd think with John Hughes listed as a creator, the show might capture some of the movie's charm, but guess what? Hughes had zero involvement. None. Zilch. Nada. He's credited in name only, which is Hollywood's way of saying, yeah, we're using your work, but please don't watch this. Ooh, fun fact, Seth Green auditioned for the role of Gary. Yep, Buffy's werewolf and Chris Griffin himself almost played the lead nerd. And Kelly LeBrock, she actually was asked to reprise her role as Lisa, but took one look at the script and said, yeah, no. Look, I get it. The mid 90s were a weird time for TV. We had shows about everything from talking dinosaurs to alien neighbors. But Weird Science somehow managed to take a cult classic movie and turn it into a forgettable sitcom that somehow lasted 3 seasons. In conclusion, Weird Science, the TV show, is proof that just because you can adapt a movie into a TV series doesn't mean you should. It's the science experiment that should have stayed in the lab. The next victim on my awesome to awful list is the 1989 classic Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. But don't worry, this isn't about the heartwarming tale of the dad accidentally making his kids ant-sized. Nope, we're talking about the 1997 syndicated TV show that took the concept and said, this needs more suburban hijinks and fewer reasons to care. So Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show, yep, they even stuck that subtitle in there, like they were worried we'd confuse it with a nature documentary. The show debuted in 1997, ran for 3 seasons, and concluded in 2000. And by concluded, I mean they mercy killed it after 66 episodes. Honestly, the real mystery is how this made it past season 1. So let's talk casting. Peter Scolari stepped into the role of Wayne Zielinski, a lovable but bumbling inventor originally played by the legendary Rick Moranis. Scolari's a talented guy, don't get me wrong, but let's just say he's no Rick Moranis. Moranis had this rare gift for making dad accidentally shrinks children seem both funny and oddly relatable, but Scolari just, didn't get it at all. The show brought back Wayne and his wife Diane and their 2 kids, Amy and Nick. Now, in the movie, they were a charmingly dysfunctional family dealing with big, or should I say small problems, but in the series, they're just there. Diane's a lawyer who spends most of her time sighing heavily at Wayne's antics. Amy's your textbook angsty teen, and Nick, he's like a mini Wayne, but with a weird obsession with the supernatural. And the family dog, well, they recast that dog halfway through. They couldn't even keep the same dog on board. Each episode followed the same formula. Wayne invents some wacky contraption with a name like the Neuron Nudger or the Brainy Activator. Chaos ensues, family learns lesson, roll credits. But instead of focusing on the inventive whimsy that made the original movie so great, the show doubled down on low-budget special effects and sitcom cliches. It was like someone saw Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and thought, it needs to feel more like Full House, but with lasers. In the setting, Matheson, Colorado, randomly. Nothing screams sci-fi adventure like moving to the middle of nowhere and having your neighbors constantly call the cops on you. It's just a weird premise. And shout out to Jake McKenna, the local police chief, who somehow found time to deal with Wayne's shenanigans in between actual crimes. Ugh. Oh, I need to point this out. The show pretends that the third Zelensky child, Adam, never existed. Right, like, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, he's literally the whole plot. But in the show, not a peep. I guess they just figured, 2 kids are enough. When it comes to the ratings, the first season were mediocre. By the third, even the dog was phoning it in. Disney finally pulled the plug in 2000, but not before we got a bizarre penultimate episode where Diane announces she's pregnant. I don't know. Oh, and Rick Moranis, he's name-dropped in one episode where Wayne doesn't even recognize who he is. Way to meta-shame your audience, show. Hey, remember the guy who made this franchise watchable? Yeah, we couldn't get him. So there you have it. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, the TV show. A magical movie concept that was shrunk down, stretched thin, and overstuffed with sitcom nonsense until it was unrecognizable.
Ferris Bueller.
When it comes to 80s nostalgia, nothing triggers those warm fuzzy feelings of simpler times more than a young Matthew Broderick skipping school, dancing in a parade, and making us believe that we too could dodge responsibility with a wink and a smile. Of course I'm talking about Ferris Bueller's Day Off. But then NBC came along in the 90s and said, you know what this movie needs? A sitcom adaptation no one asked for. And just like that, the charm of Ferris was stuffed into a cheap polyester laugh track. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the failed Ferris Bueller TV show. NBC had a lot of confidence in the project, and why not? The Ferris Bueller movie was a box office hit in 1986, cracking the top 10 alongside Top Gun and The Karate Kid Part 2. Fast forward to 1990, and NBC thought that if the people love the movie, they'll love watching Ferris on a weekly basis. No, they didn't. NBC even sneak previewed the pilot before the season officially started, pulling in strong ratings. When the real season began, Ferris Bueller went from Save Ferris to Please God Cancel Ferris in record time. Now, the show wasn't just bad, it was aggressively bad. Charlie Schlatter stepped into the iconic role of Ferris Bueller. Meanwhile, Jennifer Aniston, not Jennifer Grey, played his sister, Jeannie. Yeah, pre-Friends Jennifer Aniston. Turns out even sitcom royalty has to start somewhere. Joining Schlatter and Aniston in the series were Amy Dolenz as Ferris's girlfriend Sloane Peterson and Brandon Douglas as Ferris's best friend Cameron Fry. The roles had been played on the big screen, of course, by Mia Sara and Alan Ruck. Now let's talk premise. The Ferris Bueller TV show had the audacity to tell us the movie was fake. In the pilot, Ferris grabs a cardboard cutout of Matthew Broderick, chops it in half with a chainsaw, and says, "That's not me." That's right, the first thing they did was insult the movie we loved. Bold strategy, NBC. Bold. Despite this, there were no further mentions of the film in the TV series, no references to Ferris being famous for having had a movie based on his life. And while in the film, Ferris and Sloane were already in a relationship, in the TV series, Sloane was a recent transfer to Ocean Park High, who Ferris had fallen for. To make things worse, the TV Ferris wasn't the lovable slacker we knew. No, he was an all-knowing teenage demigod with a limo at school and an answering machine in his locker. He hacked police computers, chartered helicopters, and apparently spoke Japanese. I mean, what Ferris Bueller's Day Off really needed was a subplot of Mission Impossible. And then there was the writing. Critics called the show soulless, a ferret version of Ferris, and one even suggested Ferris should shut up. That's some savage Washington Post shade right there. And if that wasn't bad enough, Ferris Bueller Face Off against Parker Lewis Can't Lose, starring Cora Nemec. It was a Fox show inspired by the same Ferris Bueller vibes, but it was actually funny. And while Ferris was being busy being obnoxious, Parker Lewis was winning over viewers with quirky charm. I'm going to talk more about that show in a future video, and I also will have a special guest. By mid-December, NBC had given Ferris the old Principal Rooney treatment and sent him to detention. That is, they canceled it. But they weren't done yet. They burned off the last episode 8 months later, because why not humiliate him a little more? So why did Ferris Bueller fail? Was it the uninspired writing, the weird plot choices, the fact that NBC put it in a tough Monday night time slot against Major Dad and MacGyver? Yes, yes, and yes. In the end, the Ferris Bueller TV show became a cautionary tale, like many others on this list. Sometimes a movie is perfect just the way it is. You don't need to stretch 90 minutes of magic into 13 episodes of mediocrity. And yet Hollywood never learns.
She is literally the Polaroid of perfection.
There was nothing better than being a teenager in America in the 1990s. The golden age of flannel shirts, Doc Martens, baby doll tees, and Janko jeans. And in 1995, the ultimate teenage movie, which happened to be based on a Jane Austen novel, made its way to theaters. Yes, friends, I'm talking about Clueless. This modern retelling of Emma was set in Beverly Hills and followed Cher Horowitz, played by Alicia Silverstone, who we all know is a virgin who can't drive. But seriously, Cher is wealthy, she's fashion obsessed, and she's a charming, naive high schooler who views herself as the queen bee and matchmaker of her social circle. Cher spends her days orchestrating social schemes, like setting up 2 lonely teachers to improve their moods and her grades, and giving a makeover to the new girl Ty, played by Brittany Murphy, to boost her popularity. However, Cher's plans don't always go as expected, and her own understanding of love is challenged when she develops unexpected feelings for her stepbrother Josh, played by, oh yes, you know who, Paul Rudd, in one of his earliest film roles. Along the way, the movie delivers iconic one-liners, a vibrant 1990s aesthetic, and a heartfelt journey of Cher learns to see beyond her privileged bubble and becomes more self-aware. This iconic teen comedy seemingly blended 19th century social commentary with 90s Valley Girl culture, and costume designer Mona May created over 60 outfits for Cher alone. She created a wardrobe that defined 90s fashion. My proof? Cher's iconic yellow plaid suit remains a pop culture staple 30 years later. Clueless introduced a treasure trove of 1990s slang to the mainstream, including as if, whatever, and Betty. Amy Heckerling even worked with linguists to create authentic sounding teen dialogue. And then there's the soundtrack, with a time capsule of 1990s music, featuring artists like The Muffs, Coolio, and No Doubt. It perfectly captures the movie's upbeat and irreverent tone. The film has become a cult classic, frequently cited as one of the best teen movies ever made, which means, of course, it spawned a TV series. The TV show started on ABC in 1996 and tried to reintroduce us to the eternal wisdom of Cher Horowitz and her computerized closet. But the attempt was done without Silverstone, Rudd, and the themes of self-discovery, friendship, and personal growth. Silverstone wasn't available due to a scheduling conflict, so the Cher role went to Rachel Blanchard, who did her best to fill Silverstone's iconic shoes. Did she nail it? Well, that's for you to decide. Just know that Stacey Dash, Donald Faison, Elisa Donovan, Wallace Shawn, and Twink Kaplan all reprised their roles from the movie. In addition to casting, there were more differences between the show and the movie. For one, Cher's dad Mel went through not 1 but 2 recasts. First, Dan Hedaya handed off to Michael Lerner, who then passed the torch to Doug Sheehan. By the end of it, Mel had mellowed out so much he was practically a yoga instructor. And Paul Rudd's character Josh, he barely made it into the series and was swiftly written out, proving once and for all that America's love affair with Paul Rudd had only just begun. Oh, and remember Ty, the adorably clueless Brittany Murphy character? Yeah, she appeared in a grand total of 3 episodes, played by a new actress. That's like ordering a Big Mac and getting a single chicken nugget. Sure, it's food, but is it what you wanted? Meanwhile, Amy Heckerling, who wrote and directed the original film, tried to keep the magic alive by writing and directing several episodes of season 1, but even she bailed before the end. In its first season, Clueless was actually a big hit with teenagers, with millions watching weekly, and that's because it was part of ABC's famous TGIF lineup. But outside that demographic, crickets. So ABC gave it the axe, and Clueless packed its Louis Vuitton luggage and moved to UPN, a network that launched in the 90s and then later merged with the WB to become the CW. Somehow, the show managed to last 3 seasons before it was canceled, and all of those episodes are free on YouTube. Links to those playlists in the description. But just because it lasted that long doesn't mean it wasn't awful, in my opinion. So why did Clueless ultimately fail? Was it the network switch, the recasts, or was it just that by the late 90s, America's appetite for bubblegum teen comedy had been replaced by grittier fare like Dawson's Creek? Whatever the reason, Clueless, the TV show, remains a fascinating relic of a time when Jane Austen adaptations came with pastel miniskirts and Valley Girl accents. Gen Xers remembered The Net as a 1995 Sandra Bullock techno-thriller that gave us a chilling peek into the perils of digital identity theft long before we knew what two-factor authentication was. The movie was a taut, engaging tale of a computer analyst played by Bullock whose life is turned upside down when she stumbles upon a dangerous conspiracy. Honestly, this movie was quite ahead of its time with its themes as the world switched from analog to digital, and it brought in over $100 million at the box office. Naturally, it made perfect sense to adapt this cult hit into a TV series, right? The problem was the 1998 small screen version of The Net decided to take that premise and, well, let's just say Control-Alt-Delete might have been a better idea. The TV show The Net starred Brooke Langton as Angela Bennett, stepping into the shoes of Bullock's character. Relocating the action to Seattle, this Angela is a software consultant who receives a top-secret email detailing the existence of a cyber terrorist group known as the Praetorians. Cue chaos. Angela's identity is stolen, she's framed for murder, and her face ends up on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. The series had an ambitious plotline involving shadowy conspiracies, a mysterious hacker ally named Sorcerer, voiced and then later portrayed by none other than Tim Curry and Eric Zamonda, respectively, and a nemesis, Sean Trelawney, whose name sounds like he wandered in from a Bond movie. On paper, this sounds promising, but in execution, the USA Network's take on cyber thrills felt more like the dial-up version of a broadband idea. First off, there's the tone. Where the movie thrived on suspense and paranoia, the series often felt like it was trying to recreate the X-Files with a Y2K twist, but forgot to bring the clever writing or compelling characters. Angela's quest to restore her identity involved an exhausting cycle of hack into system, escape the bad guys, repeat. The plot often felt more convoluted than a string of badly written code, and the script was overflowing with technobabble. Even the show's attempts to introduce personal stakes for Angela fell flat. Flashbacks of her father's secret government project felt tacked on, and the revelation that Sorcerer was a 17-year-old genius complete with a fake British accent and an overdramatic backstory added more melodrama than intrigue. The Praetorians themselves lacked a credible sense of menace, reduced to a faceless group of evil hackers whose motives seemed to be because we can. And then there's the pacing. While the movie kept us on the edge of our seats for 2 hours, the series struggled to sustain tension over 22 episodes. By the time Angela's FBI exoneration rolled around, after a season of thwarted schemes and convenient plot twists, even the show itself seemed to run out of steam. When the series attempted to set up a new direction with Angela joining the Center for Intrusion Control, the ratings had already sealed its fate. But perhaps most egregious misstep was how the show handled its central theme, the dangers of technology. In an era when the internet was still a wild, wild west of chat rooms and GeoCities pages, the net could have explored genuinely prescient ideas about privacy and digital security. Instead, it often veered into cartoonish territory, like Angela pretending to be a substitute chemistry teacher to stop a teenage supervillain. It's hard to take the show's warnings about cyber dangers seriously when its plots felt ripped from a Saturday morning cartoon. The Net ultimately aired for just 1 season before being unceremoniously canceled in 1999. While Brooke Langton did her best to carry the series, even her earnest performance couldn't overcome the clunky scripts and hokey storytelling. And of course, following in Sandra Bullock's footsteps is no small task. In the end, the Net TV series serves another cautionary tale of its own. Oh, yes, we have finally made it to the TV pilot that inspired this entire two-part video. An unaired pilot I had no idea existed until about a week ago, which means I must be slipping in my old age because the movie it came from is one of my favorites of all time. A 1994 masterpiece that gave us existential retail dread and the eternal work complaint, I'm not even supposed to be here today. Yes, it's Kevin Smith's Clerks. Now, Clerks isn't just a movie, it's a vibe. It's Dante and Randall, two slackers who turned a day at the Quick Stop into a Shakespearean comedy. If Shakespeare had a penchant for Star Wars debates and listing X's like a baseball card collection. And this Gen X Hangout movie broke every rule. No three-act structure because it didn't need it. No explosions, no big names. It's just two guys and their friends, some customers, and a fantastic dialogue-driven script with a lot of philosophizing about life while hiding behind a DIY, I assure you we're open sign. So how did this scrappy little indie flick, shot for less money than your average Marvel catering budget, become a cultural phenomenon? Well, after its premiere, producer Bob Hawke saw it, liked it, and convinced Miramax, then a Disney subsidiary, to pick it up. And because it's Hollywood, some executive looked at this minimalist gem and thought, franchise. Cue the 1995 Clerks sitcom pilot. Yes, a Clerks sitcom pilot. The live action version of taking your favorite indie band and asking them to perform jingles for commercials. This sitcom had everything: a laugh track, a strip mall instead of the Quick Stop, and wait for it, no Jay and Silent Bob. We'll explain that a little bit here. Dante and Randall were recast with Andre Lowry and a pre-Saturday Night Live Jim Brewer replacing Brian O'Halloran and Jeff Anderson. Now, I love Jim Brewer. His comedic timing is spot on, but this show gave us watered-down jokes that felt like they were written by a PTA committee trying to be edgy. And instead of Jay, we got Ray, played by Bodie Elfman. Why? Because Kevin Smith owned Jay, but more on that in a minute. Okay. The new backup characters in the Clerks sitcom included an ice cream server played by Rick Gomez, aka Justified's David Vasquez, and a tanning salon ditz played by a pre-Felicity Carey Russell. This pilot wasn't just bad, it was generic, and it lacked everything that made the movie great. Dante's existential angst, sanitized. Randall's chaos agent energy, diluted. And the Quick Stop's charm, replaced by a mall that screamed, "This is what adults think teens find cool." It's literally the "Hey fellow kids" meme come to life. And where was Kevin Smith during all of this? Well, he was off making Mallrats. He actually had no idea this was happening. He found out about the sitcom pilot from one of his cast members, Brian O'Halloran, whose agent casually mentioned it. Smith then tried to get involved, even pitched his own script, but the studio said, nah, we're good. Bold move, rejecting the guy who invented the universe you're working with. Truly galaxy brain stuff. To be fair, and I'm all about fairness here, the pilot wasn't a total waste. It gave us Jim Brewer and Carey Russell, gave them some early screen time before they went on to bigger things. Plus, it showed that Clerks could work as a TV show. Enter Clerks the Animated Series in 2000. It kept the essence of the original, added brilliant satire, and got canceled after 2 episodes because, of course. So what's the takeaway here? The failed Clerks sitcom pilot, I think, is a fascinating artifact. It's what happens when studios chase the idea of a brand without respecting its soul. And yet, it still played a small role in keeping the Clerks legacy alive, because sometimes even a bad idea can be the spark for something better. Clerks went on to spawn the entire View-esque universe, which included 2 sequels, Jay and Silent Bob movies, countless comics, a cartoon, and more. It's a testament to Kevin Smith's vision and the enduring power of a couple of guys complaining about customers. As for the failed Clerks sitcom pilot, well, thanks for trying. At least you're immortalized on YouTube. Link in the description. Holy crap, I've been talking for almost an hour. It's time for this video to be over. Thank you all so much for the views and subs. I just hit 50,000, that's insane, and I can't thank you all enough. And thank you to my channel members. Your support for this channel means the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, bye.